Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our Tips and Tricks series for Android and iOS. Last week we covered the Sticks tour, and though I don't have any additional suggestions from that tour, that is still an open invitation for future installments in this series. But we do need to move on with the next tour that is on our list of agenda today. And that, of course, is going to be, well, the next one in sequence, which is Tour 7 Heck. Now, despite the fact that this is Tour 7, it is, from what I'm understanding, a relatively recent addition to the Tour series. So it will be interesting to visit this, as it's one that people are probably getting a little bit more hung up on, despite the fact that it is classified as a lower difficulty tour. But that's what I'm here to walk you through and help you determine a couple of additional strategies for going through this particular tour. So make sure you check to see if you are subscribed to the channel, and if you're not, please go ahead and do that, as I bring daily variety content to your subscription feed. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you leave a like, as that greatly helps me out and lets others know that this is content that might interest them as well. So let's jump in to the Heck Tour. So this first section is pretty interesting, and if you don't have access to the shield ball, which I currently don't, your best option is going to be banking off of either one of these pillars. It's a relatively straightforward progress down to the bottom of the course. You can then use other power-ups to get closer to the bottom and to the putting green that's down there at the end. I like using the speed balls rather than the power balls for those type of shots, mainly because the speed balls have a lot more control over how hard you can hit them, whereas the super balls, you just hit them as hard as you can and you're likely to overshoot your target and either go careening back or be flung off into the abyss where you can't really recover from. The next little section here does have a little float type raft, and you will want to make sure that you get to the back edge of that raft, or over toward the right hand side of it, which will give you a nice follow up here. You can still progress if you're on the left side of that raft, but it'll require an additional stroke to get down on that ledge that's right below where my ball is currently placed. For here, I recommend taking a slower roll off of the edge as the raft is coming back closer to you, and then you can get, if you place it correctly, a decent follow-up onto the actual putting green here, just like that. And if you mess it up once or twice, don't worry, it can be a little bit difficult to make those shots from moving platforms, especially when your ball isn't secured, but we were able to recover from that, and you get the general idea of the suggestion that was meant to be employed on that particular hole. This hole is one that gets quite interesting. So immediately you're going to want to get down onto this lower level. I find it best to try and roll off that edge so you can get a decent follow-up onto the top of this larger moving section. And the intended route is for you to come all the way over this way and then make another shot inside. However, you can just bounce off of that pillar and circumnavigate the intended course as outlined per the standard course build. And that's going to save you a lot of time and headaches. And especially if you're playing with some lower level players, they're not going to recognize that that is indeed an option you can go for, and it's an intimidating option to go for as well. So it will definitely give you a leg up on the rest of the combatants on that course. So this course gets pretty interesting. It's a lot of snaking back and forth. So there's a couple of tactics that you can use here. One is a nice little follow-up to here. And then if you do have the putty ball, like I do, then you can make a shot something like that that's going to bring you off the backside of the course. And the reason you would want to do that is it allows you to circumnavigate the entirety of that snake that goes back and forth. From here, it's just a nice little follow-up shot again to the green, and then a nice little putt in. If you do go through this with its standard trajectory, I still recommend going to the left rather than to the right, because the right requires you to do a wall bank that can be a little bit tricky if you don't have enough power behind your shot. So we've outlined this one before, but if you do not have access to the sticky ball, it's not the end of the world. You'll still want to make this shot down this way, and then take a nice little follow-up right off the end in order to get down onto the lower platforms. Now, when it comes to snaking back and forth, like I said, I still recommend taking this path, just because going to the right can be a little bit more of an unpredictable spot, because that's a fairly long bank off of that wall, as you can see, and I did not mean to hit myself that way. But if you're really concerned, you can use a couple of additional power-ups to ensure that you are going to have an easier time getting through that zone. The anti-gravity ball is a really good example of that, because it allows you to avoid any of those water-type hazards that are very frequent throughout these different courses, albeit that they look different and unique in every single zone. So with this particular hole, your pattern's going to be fairly straightforward. You're going to want to take a singular bank shot off that pillar onto the lower ledge, and then you'll want to get a follow-up from here. The intended trajectory is to go up on to this little rotating platform, but if you're far enough ahead, you can kind of make your own path and save yourself the stroke or two. If you make a nice little roll off of that shattered pillar, you can get a really nice drop down onto the same platform as the putting green, and since you don't end up on the green itself, you have a lot more power going into your next shot to continue through that and clear out the hole. So those are a couple of shortcuts or alternate strategies that you can use to get a leg up on that course. So this particular tour gets really interesting, and that's because it relies on a lot of shorter shots, ideally. Now, you can use the Super Ball if you have it to get a little bit ahead of the game. You've just got to make sure that you are banking off of the slanted portion of that shattered pillar. Otherwise, you're going to be sent careening out of control, and that's really no good. I misjudged a shot due to the shattered nature of that pillar that's right there. However, as long as you can make it past that area, you're going to avoid a lot of the conflict that tends to happen, especially with other players, as they will jostle around for ideal positioning. From here, you'll just want to make a chip shot. If you have a roll further back in towards that corner, you may be able to use one of your power-ups to get a more idealistic lie. If not, the follow-up shots from that point going forward are not the end of the world. Again, the biggest thing here is the top section, and then keeping an eye out for a lot of those hanging hazards that are present in some of the lower areas as well. So this hole is a bit interesting as well. It's got a couple more of these fairies, and ideally, if you're looking to really get ahead here, what you can do is you can take a shot that leads you up into this little canal here. Now, I've missed it, mainly because I was trying to rush and get that. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. If you don't find yourself as lucky, it's not the end of the world. This follow-up shot isn't impossible. It can just be a little bit trickier than the alternate path if you are able to get through that opening on the top portion of the course. But if not, it's just a simple little bank shot off of that pillar as the raft is coming back to the right side of that water hazard, and you'll be able to manage no issues. So here is another kind of fun course where you can zigzag back and forth a little bit. Even if you have the sniper ball, it's a bit of a tight shot, but you can manage getting onto the lower ledge and getting a little bit further ahead of the competition. But honestly, it doesn't make a big difference. because you're still going to end up taking that extra shot. But it is an option, especially if you're looking to get away from some of your competition from the other competitors on those holes. So with this particular hole, the biggest thing that the course wants you to do is take a first shot down here and then get a nice follow-up into these dual pillars with a fairly narrow margin between down below. Now, there are one of two different options that you can go through depending on which of the power-ups you have. As you can see, we have both the sniper and the sticky ball available to us. If you only have the sniper ball, it may be in your best interest to see if you can roll up before going off the edge of that and then taking a very high sheer shot. But if you have the sticky ball, then you can just have the benefit of taking a shot at a lower angle that's easier to get into that particular area. Now from here, the best thing that you can do is bank off of this pillar instead of the wall that's over on the right, mainly because it gives an easier follow-up to the green under most circumstances. If you have the sticky ball or something else that's going to prevent you from rolling off the edge and having to wait for a ball restart, then of course it's in your better interest to take that other shot. But as a general rule, you'll want to stick to the left as you get down to the bottom portion of that course. And with that, I think that we have outlined all of the holes that are present within the Heck Tour. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like. If you feel like there's something I missed, please leave me a comment, as I like to go back through and revisit these if there's a strategy that I have missed or overlooked that needs to be touched upon, and I will give that my due diligence to demo how that works in a future episode before we get into the meat and bones of whatever tour we're looking at that day. If you made it this far into the video, make sure that you drop that subscription. Thank you for letting me have some of your time, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.